Just because you dance really well does not mean that you probably can follow everything. And today we are going to be talking about my perspective changes that I've had in my kizomba dancing career, my 1-year-long career. I'm still a follower. I've been taking a few classes as a leader, and I thought I would share a few perspective changes that I've had since I started this part of my dancing journey, the way that I feel about certain things, or the way that I notice things work from both sides. So, first one is, not every time that the follower does not do what the leader intended for them to do is a mistake. And let me be very clear on the wording here. Doesn't mean that it was correct, but it's not necessarily a mistake. So what could it be instead of mistake? Maybe the leader made a mistake in his leading or her leading, or if the follower is making a mistake, it could be that I felt one thing, but I did another. And I've had this happen before where maybe I felt that I was supposed to cross my leg, but I didn't cross my leg because I processed it too late. And I was like, oh crap, I felt that late. That I would call a mistake. What I think happens also is misinterpretations. And this I kind of find to be funny because followers don't necessarily know that it's happening. So this one happens a lot more with beginner followers, I think, is where you're trying to do a certain move on them and they do something else. And then when they do it, you're like, oh, actually, I see how you could have got that. So then the question becomes, especially since I'm a beginner leader, was it me or was it them? This is why I say it's a misinterpretation, because maybe it was me and then it would be my mistake. But if it was led perfectly and they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the dance vocabulary to follow it, then I don't think it's a mistake. It's just lack of knowledge or misinterpretation. So I think a misinterpretation is more where it was iffy on the leading, or it was a complex move and then maybe the follower just interpreted it differently. But it's hard to say that so many things are mistakes when there's other things that are happening, because there's so many moving parts. If the person doesn't have the knowledge of how to do the move, it doesn't matter how well you lead it. Yes, there are some moves that you can do, especially like if a person knows very basic things, you can do certain things just above their level. But if you try to do something that's way past their level, no matter how good of a leader you are, from my point of view, you can't make them do it. If a girl just learned to do Saida today, the chances of you teaching her to push her leg forward and bring it back and cross are very low. And maybe I'm wrong. Someone tell me I'm wrong. Please leave me a comment and tell me I'm wrong. And please send me a video of a beginner girl who can do that, or a beginner follower, who can do that, because from my point of view, that's just lack of knowledge and not necessarily the fault of a leader. I do think that a leader, yes, a good leader can get you to do many things that you don't know how to do yet, or that you didn't know that you would be able to understand yet, but it does not mean that they can do everything. If you try to do a crazy trick with the beginner, one, dangerous, but two, they're not going to do it. So I think it's ridiculous to put so much fault on the situation of when there's a misinterpretation or a lack of knowledge. That's all I'm saying there. And you can really see it when you're on the leader side, because you can see what you intended not happening. Versus when you're a follower, you always are kind of making an assumption that you're doing it unless you consistently feel lost, which is this is where at that point it's either there's no connection or it's bad leading. Either they're a bad leader or you're just not connecting, which can happen even with two advanced dancers. It is also the possibility, and I think this happened a bit more when I was dancing maybe salsa. There's a possibility the follower actually does not want to do the thing you were doing. I don't mean this in the way of back leading. I mean you're literally doing a move that most likely makes them uncomfortable. For example, if some people who I don't trust do random tricks, I'm not a big tricks person. If you talk to me, I'm like, tricks, whatever. Like, I don't like flipping all over the place, doing splits. Nope, don't like it. If I don't want to do that, I'm not going to do it. And there's a difference between me not knowing it versus me not doing it. But the reality is, if you try it and I don't do it, you have to have the awareness for that. And so there are times I also think that the follower just doesn't want to do it for whatever reason. And I mean, that's their right to not do it. But I think that mostly happens with tricks, because there are some people who should not be doing tricks that are doing tricks all over the place. And that's like so dangerous. I don't care if you're, I care a lot actually, if you're offbeat. But I care even more if you try to do a trick with me and hurt me and make it so I can't dance anymore. So if you're doing tricks and all the girls hate doing tricks with you, you should stop doing it. They probably won't get this message. Leading, when you first start leading, and I'm saying this all as a beginning leader, so this is my dancing diary, but leading in the beginning is so mentally intense because you haven't done anything from muscle memory yet. So I think maybe yesterday at a social, I finally could do like a few things from like muscle memory of you've done this cha-cha so many times that you know how to do it from any given position. I can execute on the move that I learned that day, always. But if I didn't learn a move that day and I just went to a social, I don't remember anything. It takes me like 20 minutes. So you're just sitting there doing the basics, trying to remember anything you know. And then you have the follower who's looking at you like, can you do something? In general, there's just like a lot more pressure on the leaders. I love following. Every time I finish leading, I'm so happy to go back to following. It does get better over time, but it's really mentally draining in the beginning. Be kind to the beginner leaders. One thing that bugs me in the classes though is that people will often tell you to just do it or fix your posture or be confident. But just to let y'all know, from the leader's side, so many followers have straight faces. And I mean, I'm comparing people to myself because I'm someone who's like, hi, hi, hi. And not saying everyone needs to be like that, but man, it changes the entire dynamic. Like, have good energy in the dance is what I'm saying. So that's like my shout out to the followers to be just like happier. And I'm not saying that they have to be begging people to do anything, but yeah, if you look straight faced and not like you're having a good time, then it's not pleasurable to dance with you. And you have to realize we're dancing, trying to see if it works. Like, no one's giving feedback to say that you're doing it right most of the time. Like, some people will say maybe you're doing it right, but usually you have to ask. And then every time you keep asking, the follower's like, duh. And it's like in the middle of class, I don't know. There's no feedback on the other side. So feedback in general would be great for the entire dance, because I know that there's some leaders who definitely could use some feedback, but yeah, having a better energy on both sides as a leader and a follower does make the dance better. So if you want to have leaders with good energy, also produce good energy. If you want to have followers with good energy, also produce good energy. There have been a lot of realizations. I know a lot of people say you become a much better follower when you become a leader. Partially, yes. I think you're able to understand like certain things that are happening from a different perspective, so you can understand the concepts better. For me, I don't know if it's necessarily helped me yet, but I'm still very beginner. The point of view I have of followers has really been interesting. Here's one. Just because you dance really well does not mean that you probably can follow everything like you think you can. And I say this because now, how I said earlier that sometimes you just don't have the knowledge. People who are not consistently learning will not necessarily have the knowledge to be able to interpret all the new things that they could. For example, and of course there's tricks that sometimes you just have to learn them. But sometimes maybe a new technique is happening, and yes, like a really good leader can make a really good follower do it. But there's a lot of intermediate dancers who think they can follow everything. And now that I've seen this happen, I'm like, oh, because only the leader knows if the person didn't do the thing that they intended. And that's such an interesting concept to me now, because there's so many followers who I have heard so many times say, a good leader can lead everything. We can lead everything, but that doesn't mean you can follow everything. And if you don't have the knowledge to follow them, you're not going to know it. They will, but you're not going to know it. And if you're not continuously improving to be able to interpret the other things, then yes, you can lead everything that you know, but you can't necessarily follow everything just because the leader is a very good leader. That's my point of view. Actually, I would love for people to let me know what they think about that. But from my point of view, you have to have knowledge on both sides continuously increasing. Because I do think that there are a lot of followers who do not realize that they don't have the knowledge of certain moves. This concept of it's always the leader's fault is not necessarily the best way to put it, because it's not always the leader's fault. Like, if you misinterpreted, then is it the leader's fault, or is it both your faults, or is it no one's fault? It doesn't really matter whose fault it was unless the leader actually did not lead it. So yes, if the leader didn't lead it correctly, yes, then it is their fault. But it's not always the leader's fault. What do you think, if you've done both, what do you think was one of your most eye-opening experiences, or what surprised you the most out of what I've said today? If you like this video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can get updates on all the new videos that I put out. Thank you for following my dancing journey. Thank you for following my dancing journey, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.